So guys, we'll continue our tour of the Mount of Olives by going down the hill, stopping at the Dominus Flevit Church and going further down to reach the Garden of Gethsemane. So guys, we are continuing where we left off from the last video. We are walking down the Mount of Olives, heading towards the Dominus Flevit Church. Down. Interestingly, there are two large caves here where dozens of stone coffins dating back to the 1st century CE was found here. It means Jesus with. This church is called Dominus Flevit. It's a Catholic church. The name Dominus Flevit means the Lord wept in Latin. It refers to the Gospel account of Jesus weeping over the city of Jerusalem because he foresaw the destruction of the city of Jerusalem, which would come true in the year 70 Common Era. This church was designed by the Italian architect Antonio Baluzzi and was built in 1955 on the site where Jesus was believed to have wept over the city of Jerusalem before his triumphal entry on Palm Sunday on a donkey into the city of Jerusalem. The church is shaped like a teardrop to symbolize Jesus' tears, and the altar faces the city of Jerusalem. So our guide Jamil is telling us how Jesus wept at this site before his triumphal entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday because he predicted the destruction of Jerusalem.
So when Jesus stood here and he said, no stone will stay above the other. He predicted the destruction of the temple. Destructed in 70 AD. The destruction was when the Romans after the Jewish revolt.
So Jamil is telling that Antonio Baluzzi built this church over the site of a ruined 5th century Byzantine church, and it was built in the shape of a tear.
Here. So here the dome is like the shape of the tear. You see, if you look to the dome, it's like the shape of the tear because in order to commemorate the crying of Jesus here.
And Jamil is telling us that from inside the church there are large windows from which you can actually view the Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock from the seats inside the church.
He built it also, there is a window from inside. While you are having a mass inside or while you are sitting on the chairs, you can see all Jerusalem as a panoramic view from the window while you are sitting on the chair. So this the design of Barloti. You can see Jerusalem, and also you can see the Temple Mount area and Jerusalem, and also you can see it from outside as the shape of the tear.
Now Jamil is going to show us the remnants of the 5th to 6th century Byzantine mosaic still preserved here outside the church.
They are coloring, they are making several shapes. So this is the Byzantines, they used to do this. They are very professionals in doing this, called the mosaic, coloring and many geometrical shapes, grapes they are making because they were fascinated with the grapes. The grapes is very delicious here, and that's why they made a.
As you enter the church, you can see more evidence of this 5th to 6th century Byzantine mosaic here. So you can see on the altar table an emblem of a hen gathering its brood. This is directly from Luke chapter 13 verse 34, which says, "How often would I have gathered my children together, as a hen doth gather her brood under her wings, yet ye would not."
Look at this window, you can see all Jerusalem.
So usually churches face east, but in this instance, this church is facing west, the Temple Mount. Because this church is built to remember the fact that Jesus wept when he saw Jerusalem, predicting the destruction of the city. You can see the Dome of the Rock and the Temple Mount from the windows here. So this is the outside view of the church with the stained windows there, and if you look around directly you can see the Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock directly opposite the church. It was such a nice view here, sitting here watching the Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock from the Mount of Olives. So the ladies decided to take a group photo together with the backdrop of the Temple Mount here. Gethsemane is a garden at the foot of the Mount of Olives, where according to the Gospel of the New Testament, all the four Gospels, Jesus underwent the agony in the garden and prayed that night before he was arrested, before his crucifixion. According to the New Testament, it was a place Jesus and his disciples customarily visited, which allowed Judas Iscariot to find him on the night Jesus was arrested. Gethsemane arises from the Aramaic word Geth plus Shimani, meaning oil press. It is actually referring to olive oil press. It was at this place that Jesus was betrayed and arrested. The Garden of Olives, which has 8 olive trees, bear witness to the silent witness of Jesus' prayer and suffering the evening before his crucifixion.
Yeah, this is the original garden. This is the Garden of Gethsemane, and only we can find only 8 olives. And this is the garden where the disciples, they were left here, and then Jesus went inside the church, and there he was tried, he was tested by God. And when he prayed the last time, he prayed the last prayer on earth. And the disciples, they stayed here, the apostles. When he came back, they were sleeping, and then that's why he said, can't you stay for 1 hour?
So there are actually 8 olive trees here, and carbon dating has placed them at the age of 900 years. Now the Basilica of the Agony was built to recall how Jesus agonized over us to the point of sweating blood, as described in Luke chapter 22 verse 44. The initial basilica here was built in the 4th century, the Byzantine Basilica. It had in the center of the apse the Rock of Agony, which is still conserved. And it had beautiful mosaic, which was destroyed by the Persians in the 7th century. In the 12th century, the Crusaders built another basilica here. This was also destroyed, and a new basilica, which is this present basilica, is called the Church of All Nations, was built in the year 1924 by the architect Antonio Baluzzi. Natural light filters by alabaster windows, creates a climate of prayer and invites one to prostrate oneself before the Rock of Agony, which has been conserved directly in front of the altar. This basilica is called the Church of All Nations because of the contributions offered by different countries for the mosaics of the apse and the cupolas. The apse is the projecting part of a building, usually of a church. Now this rock here at the altar is actually the Rock of Agony, the place where Jesus is believed to have prayed before being arrested by the Romans. And this is the cupola, a rounded dome-like structure covering a square tower, usually to provide light or air. The facade of this All Nations Church is very interesting. We've got the statues of the 4 evangelists here from left to right. We have Mark, Luke, Matthew, and finally John the Evangelist. And this modern mosaic depicts Jesus Christ as the mediator between God and man, designed by Giulio Bargellini. And you can see that this church actually faces the Temple Mount and is directly opposite the Golden Gate, the gate where Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem during Palm Sunday And it's also when Muslims and Christians believe that when Jesus comes again in the second coming, he will come through this gate again. So we are passing through the Garden of Gethsemane again before leaving. So guys, according to Jamil, the oldest olive tree in the garden is this tree here. And carbon dating has placed these trees to be 900 years or older.
Oldest. This tree, yep.
Now the youngest tree in this garden is this tree here. It was planted by Pope Paul VI in the year 1964, making this tree around 60 years old. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this part 2 of our walking tour of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. Till the next video, cheers!